Gregory Peck finally speaks out about Robert Mitchum. Gregory Peck was born Eldred Gregory Peck on April 5, 1916, in La Jolla, California. His early life was not without problems. His parents divorced him when he was a young boy, and he was mostly raised by his grandmother. In spite of these early problems, Peck's tall height, commanding presence, and reserved dignity made him stand out at an early age. Having studied at San Diego State College, he moved to the University of California, Berkeley, where his passion for acting was fostered. It is here that Peck discovered the trade that would shape the rest of his life, and he soon chose to pursue it with determination. Peck started his professional life on stage in the 1940s and quickly made his way to Broadway due to his dedication and natural ability. His acting came to notice in Hollywood and made his entry into films in Days of Glory in 1944. People were instantly impressed with his authenticity, his capacity to play characters warmly and with moral integrity, and his remarkable physical presence. In a matter of a few years, Peck emerged as a leading man, playing The Keys of the Kingdom, 1944, for which he received his first Academy Award nomination, and Spellbound, 1945, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. As the years passed in the 1940s and 1950s, the career of Peck skyrocketed. He emerged as one of the highest box office stars of that time, for his versatility and his ability to portray a broad variety of characters. He portrayed a tortured newspaperman in Gentleman's Agreement 1947, a film that took the issue of anti-Semitism head-on and for which his performance resulted in an Academy Award nomination. In westerns such as Duel in the Sun 1946 and The Gunfighter 1950, he added seriousness and substance to a genre that was more commonly driven by action than by character study. He also handled romantic dramas well, such as Roman Holiday 1953, in which his rapport with Audrey Hepburn formed one of the greatest screen couples of all time. The career-defining role for Peck was in 1962 when he played the morally upstanding lawyer Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. The film, based on Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, introduced Peck as a man of unshakable morality, empathy, and courage. His understated strength and forceful performance led to him winning the Academy Award for Best Actor. And Atticus Finch was a cultural symbol of fairness, justice, and the very best of American values. Even years after, this part is repeatedly stated as one of the greatest to have been played in cinematic history. Peck's career ran strongly throughout the 1960s, 7s, and into the 80s with iconic performances in movies like Cape Fear 1962, where he played against type as a victim of Robert Mitchum's terrifying villain, The Guns of Navarre 1961, a war-adventure epic, and McKenna's Gold 1969, which showcased his charisma in Western sagas. In 1976, he starred in the suspenseful thriller The Omen, introducing himself to a new generation of cinema-goers and demonstrating his skill at adapting to the changing tastes of audiences. Aside from his on-screen endeavors, Gregory Peck was respected for his integrity, empathy, and philanthropic work. He was vocal regarding social justice, civil rights, and freedom of speech. He advocated on liberal issues, gave his name and time to organizations working for equality, and never hesitated to take a moral stance, even when it was unpopular. For his work in the arts and for society, he was awarded many honors, among them the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1969, one of the country's highest civilian awards. In October 1942, in the early days of his burgeoning career, Gregory Peck married Finnish-American Greta Kuusinen, 1911 to 2008. Greta, a Finnish immigrant to the United States, was a woman of great strength and business acumen. She went on to be actively involved in charitable and human rights work, and throughout her life, she was an active participant in the Finnish-American community in Los Angeles. With Greta Peck, he established his first family, and they brought 3 sons into the world. The first of these was Jonathan Peck, born in 1944, followed by Stephen in 1946 and Carrie Paul in 1949. All 3 brought happiness and contentment into Peck's life at a time when his professional career in Hollywood was also going well. Though the marriage between Gregory and Greta had endured for more than a decade, the couple eventually fell apart with irreconcilable differences. They finally divorced in December 1955, calling off a 13-year union after years of tension. The divorce was a sad experience in PC's life. The worst shock came years later when his first son, Jonathan, died. On June 26, 1975, Jonathan was discovered dead in his house in what authorities determined was a suicide. He was just 30. The tragedy left a permanent mark in PC's heart, and it remained a grief that he bore for the remainder of his life. Discussing the tragedy in an open manner, Peck once acknowledged, "It's the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my life. You never get over something like that." His statement was the genuine expression of a father who, regardless of his stardom and success, was unable to protect his loved ones from sorrow. Those who knew Peck reported that Jonathan's death deeply affected him, adding a further depth of empathy and seriousness to his quiet dignity and compassion. Not long after his first marriage had concluded, Gregory Peck found love once again. On the eve of New Year's Day in 1955, a day after his divorce from Greta was confirmed, he was the French-born correspondent Veronique Pawnee, 1932-2012. Veronique had met Peck for the first time in 1952 when she was working as a correspondent in Paris. She was sent to interview him just as he was leaving for Italy to shoot Roman Holiday, the film that would become one of the most enduring roles of his life. That initial encounter made a lasting impression, and 6 months later Peck called to invite her to lunch. That one moment was the start of a lifelong love affair. The two became inseparable, brought together not just by love, but also through a mutual passion for culture, travel, and domesticity. Gregory and Veronique had 2 children together. Their son Anthony Peck was born in 1956, and their daughter Cecilia Peck was born in 1958. Anthony followed his father's footsteps by pursuing acting, but he also became famous for marrying supermodel Cheryl Tees, albeit this union eventually ended in divorce. Cecilia also pursued the arts, becoming an actress, producer, and documentary filmmaker, and continuing her father's tradition of storytelling with a sense of depth. In contrast to PC's first marriage, his second marriage survived. Gregory and Veronique were married for almost 5 decades between 1955 and his death in 2003. Their relationship was most respected in Hollywood, with most referring to them as one of the most committed and lasting couples in the business. Gregory Peck also loved being a grandfather, taking pleasure in the continuation of his lineage across several generations. He had children from each of his marriages, and among them is actor Ethan Peck, the son of Stephen Peck. Ethan has continued the family's artistic tradition, becoming known in television and film, including playing the role of Spock in the Star Trek Discovery series and its spin-off, Strange New Worlds. In his children and grandchildren, PC's legacy lives on not only in Hollywood, but in the integrity, compassion, and dignity of the man he was throughout his life. Hollywood insiders and old movie enthusiasts for years made assumptions about the life of 2 of their generation's greatest actors, Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum. Both men were giant figures in film, repositories of strength, integrity, and charisma in very distinct modes. Peck tended to be recalled as having a noble, dignified screen presence, the exemplar of moral correctness in films such as To Kill a Mockingbird. Mitchum, on the other hand, brought with him a tough, volatile energy, an actor whose